Hey Duff, check it out. Today we have the same color shirt on. What are you, colorblind or something, bro? My shirt's not red. Dude, where's your red shirt? No clue what you're talking about, bro. Besides, same color shirt or not, we look nothing alike. Anyhow, welcome to the Real Bit Wars. I'm Chris, and today we got plenty of pickups to show you, so let's dive right in. So as a person with that collector's mentality, I do have a very bad habit of discovering new things, and then rather than dip my toes in to test the waters, I just dive in head first. And I've done that many times in the past, and I did it again. Rather than buying one of these and reading them, I just decided, hey, I collect Terminator books. I've always been a fan of the movies, even the bad ones to a certain extent. I enjoy a little bit at least. I'm not going to share all of them right now. I'll probably just mention them on the show as I read them, but I did read 2 of them right away, and I think this is a big reason why I decided to do this is 2 of these Terminator Salvation books were written by Timothy Zahn, who I'm a big fan of in large part because of his work on the Star Wars novels. From the Ashes serves as a prequel to the Terminator Salvation film. The plot to this feels very similar to the movie. It's a group of resistance fighters trying to take out a Skynet facility. Unless you're really a diehard fan, you could probably skip this one. It's a good book and everything, but it doesn't really serve that much of a purpose in the overall story arc of the Terminator franchise. However, the other one, Trial by Fire, this is much more complex. I think when you write a prequel to a movie prior to it being released, it sort of limits what you can do with the story. This one, I think he had a little bit more free reign to just write this how he saw fit. And this actually digs a little bit deeper into that concept of cyborgs disguised as humans, much like Arnold is in the films. And the story involves these people who formerly worked at a Skynet facility who are hiding out in the woods. I won't spoil it beyond that, but yeah, this is one worth checking out. So obviously I collect plenty of video games, but another thing that I'm into is movies. However, there are just so many, I find myself trying to sort of narrow it down to certain categories, one of which is midnight movies. These are releases of old science fiction and horror movies, amongst other things. This is brand new, factory sealed. There's 5 of them in here, 4 of which are double features. I really love these releases. They're a lot of fun. It's just campy, old B movies. As part of this collection, I'm trying to get these full box sets. There were a handful of these they released. So I cannot wait to crack this open and watch all these. Another movie category I collect is Hammer. I've been getting a bunch of these in recent months. I decided to save them all for just one video here, but I'll go through them real quick. Anything that says the Hammer collection on it like that, I want it in my collection. So we have Quatermass and the Pit, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, The Legend of the 7 Golden Vampires, X, The Unknown, Hammer Trailer Collection, Quatermass 2, Straight On Till Morning, To the Devil a Daughter, starring Christopher Lee. So Hammer is known pretty well for rebooting the old monster movie franchises, and I'm a huge fan of the originals done by Universal, so because of that, I'm always looking for additional horror movies from that era. What better place to look than Universal horror? So this contains some things other than what you would have seen from Dracula, Frankenstein, and the likes. So as you can see on the cover, we have Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. There are 5 films on here, all of which are from the 1940s. So another thing I like collecting is various different releases of the Star Wars trilogy and other little oddities. I enjoy Star Wars fan fiction from that time period when people still loved Star Wars. That kind of stopped around the time the prequels came out. George Lucas in Love. This is a Star Wars take on Shakespeare in Love. It also contains some other movies done by the same people spoofing other things like Austin Powers. So this is cool. I recommend checking this out. It's a short film. Then Thumb Wars. There's actually a series of these Thumb movies out there. I was never really that interested in them until I discovered that they were made by Steve Odekirk, who made the movie Kung Pao Enter the Fist, which I really love. I hope he someday does a follow-up to that. But I've got to say, this is pretty lame. Every joke is just hey, there's a face on a thumb. Isn't that hilarious, right? And it just references Star Wars. There's really no meat on the bones. This is as advertised. What you see on the cover, there you go. That's the joke. So I'd recommend skipping this one. Oh, Yeah, so I also collect Peter Sellers movies, The Naked Truth. This was just one that I didn't have. And yeah, I'm sure you saw that. Starwoids, this is really good. It's actually a documentary about people waiting in line to see episode 1. And it's not the only one that I have. And it's also not the only Star Wars documentary I have with a Slave Leia cosplayer on the cover. So let's come up with something a little more original next time, guys, alright? But this was good. Alright, what you've all been waiting for. On to the video games. I got Jewel Master for the Sega Genesis. I got this at a place called Half Price Books, which is a chain. We have several of them in our area, and this was very cheap. Usually when I go in there, I don't find a lot of video games. It is missing the manual. I think that's partially why it was so cheap. It is kind of a subpar platformer. Nothing too special, but it's also not really so bad. Okay, I'm gonna do this again. I feel like this is like every video I pick up something for the Bomberman series. This one is actually called Bomber Boy. This is the Japanese port of it. It was released in Europe under the Dynablaster moniker, and we received it here in the United States as Atomic Punk, which I believe was the original title of the arcade version. So if you were paying attention, that's 3 different ports of a Bomberman game, none of which are titled Bomberman. Kind of an oddity. I definitely would like to pick up all 3 versions of it. So this is a little bit different than other ones we've seen in the series because it is a port of the arcade version, but nonetheless the gameplay is still very similar. And as a bonus, this actually contains the first Bomberman game that we saw on the NES as well. I'm sorry, before we continue, this is really bothering me. Duff, do you honestly think the 2 of us don't look alike?
Sorry, bro. I don't see the resemblance.
I need a beer. Okay, we got Beerio.
It's me, Beardio.
So this is brought to us by Ale Asylum. That brewery has actually been featured on the channel a couple of times before. We tried one of their beers once in a video, and also the actual brewery served as a backdrop in our Madison road trip episode. So obviously the can drew me in, and I said I have to try it. Let's give this bad boy a whirl.
Here we go.
Idaho gem hops in this one. It's kind of a little on the earthy side. You think of earth, you think of dirt, which sounds really bad, but I'd recommend checking this out. The can is awesome. The beer tastes great. And we got one more game, so hold on. Yeah. Okay, we have an NES title, which will go on the countdown. Digger T Rock. This had so much potential to be just an awesome, amazing game. It immediately just grabbed a hold of me and I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this. But wow, does it have some shortcomings. It was actually developed by the people at Rare. This is one of their earlier titles they did. The sprite animation is phenomenal, but that is also the root of its problems. So rather than just going around and attacking enemies and everything, you sort of have to wait for every frame of the sprite animation to conclude before you can do anything else. There are narrow corridors that you have to crawl through, and you don't automatically stand up when you get through them. You have to like push up and stand and then turn around, and if there's an enemy following you through there, enemies respawn infinitely. So they just ruined this game by trying to make the character look cool while he moved. So yeah, if it didn't have so many respawning enemies and everything, I probably would have played through and beat it already because I was just loving every second of it. But then I realized this is rough. I'll definitely give it another try here in the future. I was only able to get to the 3rd level, so it could have been great, but they just messed it up big time. So that does it for today's show. Thank you very much for watching Real Bit Wars. We'll see you next time. Hey, there's a face on a thumb. Isn't that hilarious, right? Rock. Awesome.